You're listening to Short History Shorts audio, where history speaks louder than images. In the ancient Greek world, women's lives were shaped not only by the expectations of gender, but also by the city-state in which they were born. Among the many polis of Greece, none were more different in their treatment of women than Athens and Sparta. While united by language, religion, and a shared cultural heritage, Athens and Sparta diverged radically in social structure, political system, and economic orientation. And this divergence created two entirely different worlds for their female citizens. In Athens, women were expected to remain in the domestic sphere, managing households and bearing children, with their public roles highly restricted. In Sparta, by contrast, women enjoyed freedoms and responsibilities that astonished and sometimes scandalized other Greeks. This is the story of those two worlds, a study in contrast between the cloistered life of the Athenian wife and the outspoken independence of the Spartan woman. To understand why these differences existed, we must begin with the core values of each society. Athens, a democratic powerhouse of trade, philosophy, and the arts, saw its citizens as male heads of households whose wives and daughters were expected to preserve family honor through modesty and seclusion. Sparta, on the other hand, was a militaristic oligarchy obsessed with producing strong warriors, and women were expected to play an active role in that mission, both physically, through their own athletic training, and socially, by managing estates while men were away at war. The Spartan girl's life began in a manner that shocked many other Greeks. Unlike in Athens, where infant girls might be exposed or neglected if their family could not provide a sufficient dowry, Spartan girls were valued for their future role as mothers of warriors. From an early age, Spartan girls were fed the same quality of food as boys and encouraged to engage in running, wrestling, and javelin throwing. The reasoning was simple: strong mothers would produce strong sons. This emphasis on physical training set Spartan women apart, not only in strength and health but also in confidence. By contrast, Athenian girls were raised almost entirely within the household, their education limited to domestic skills such as weaving, cooking, and child-rearing, with only the wealthiest families providing basic literacy. In the Athenian mind, a woman's virtue lay in her invisibility, seen as little as possible outside her home, and certainly never mingling with men who were not relatives. Marriage customs further reveal the gap between the two cultures. In Athens, marriages were arranged by the father or guardian, often when the girl was in her early teens, to a man several years her senior. The wife brought a dowry, and her role was to bear legitimate heirs. She lived in the gynaeceum, a women's quarter of the house, largely separated from the male sphere. In Sparta, marriage also involved arrangement by families, but the bride was typically older, around 18, considered strong and mature enough for childbirth. The peculiar Spartan wedding custom involved the bride's head being shaved, her dressing in male clothes, and her being symbolically captured by the groom, a rite scholars have interpreted as a ritual reenactment of the warrior ethos. Once married, the differences became even starker. Athenian women could not own land in their own right. Their dowry remained under the control of their husband, and they could not initiate divorce except in rare circumstances. Spartan women, however, could inherit and own property. In fact, because Spartan men spent much of their lives in military barracks or on campaign, women managed the estates, slaves, and agricultural production. By the 4th century BC, women are estimated to have controlled nearly 2/5 of all land in Sparta, a level of economic influence unheard of elsewhere in Greece. This control of resources gave Spartan women a degree of autonomy that baffled and sometimes angered foreign observers. Another key difference was in public visibility. The Athenian ideal of the citizen woman was one who was not talked about, whether for praise or blame. Women rarely attended public gatherings, and if they did, such as religious festivals, they were heavily veiled and accompanied. Spartan women, however, could appear in public without a veil, speak their minds freely, and were known to mock men who failed in their martial duties. Ancient writers tell of Spartan women taunting cowards, telling them they were no longer their sons if they fled the battlefield. The famous injunction, "Return with your shield or on it," encapsulated the Spartan mother's expectation. Honor in death was preferable to dishonor in life. Education also shaped the difference. In Athens, the intellectual ferment of the city was largely closed to women. While men debated in the assembly or listened to philosophers, women stayed at home. Spartan girls received formal education, though focused on physical excellence, music, and poetry, alongside moral instruction and loyalty to the state. They learned choral dancing, singing, and athletic competition, which played a role in community festivals. Even in religion, the contrast was notable. In Athens, women could hold important priesthoods, particularly in the cults of Athena and Demeter, and festivals such as the Thesmophoria were exclusively female. In Sparta, religion intertwined with the military ethos, and women participated in public rituals that showcased their physical prowess, such as dancing in honor of Artemis Orthia. The differences between Athenian and Spartan women were so stark that ancient authors often used them to illustrate broader cultural contrasts. Xenophon, the Athenian soldier and historian, praised certain aspects of Spartan women's role in raising healthy children, but criticized their freedom and influence as excessive. Aristotle went further, blaming Spartan women for the decline of the state, claiming their control of property led to luxury and the erosion of discipline. Yet from another perspective, Spartan women's prominence was a rational adaptation to a society where men were frequently absent, and the survival of the state depended on constant military readiness. In terms of legal rights, the gap was almost unbridgeable. Athenian women were legal minors all their lives, under the guardianship of a male kyrios, father, husband, or even adult son. Spartan women had no such formal guardianship after marriage, and widows in particular enjoyed substantial independence. The clothing and comportment of women also reflected their societal roles. Athenian women wore modest, concealing garments and avoided public speaking, lest they draw attention. Spartan women wore tunics that allowed free movement in athletic events and did not shy from speaking in public. This openness provoked scorn from other Greeks who saw it as shamelessness. Economically, the difference was compounded by Athens' reliance on trade and craftsmanship, where women's work was largely confined to domestic production, versus Sparta's agrarian system, where the Helot underclass farmed the land and freed citizen women from manual labor, allowing them to focus on estate management. The military focus of Sparta created a paradox. While women there had no formal political voice, they did not sit in the Gerousia or the Apella. They wielded soft power through their control of wealth, their role in shaping public opinion, and their influence over their sons and husbands. Athenian women, even from wealthy families, could exert influence only indirectly, through male relatives, and their names rarely appeared in the historical record unless connected to scandal. These differences had lasting cultural effects. In the collective memory of Greece, the Spartan woman became a symbol of toughness and civic loyalty, the Athenian woman a symbol of modesty and domestic virtue. Each ideal was shaped by the city's needs. Athens prized the stability of the oikos, the household unit, as the foundation of democracy. Sparta required every resource, including its women, to be mobilized for war. The legacies of these two models continue to intrigue historians, anthropologists, and modern audiences alike, offering a reminder that ancient Greek womanhood was not a monolith, but a spectrum shaped by politics, economics, and ideology. When we compare Athenian and Spartan women, we are really comparing two visions of society itself, one rooted in the walls of the home, the other in the open fields of the gymnasium, both enduring in the annals of history as reflections